Hello, welcome to the Geeky Brummie podcast. Joining me today, your host, Mr. Ryan Parrott, is Mr. Keith Bloomfield. Welcome.
Hello.
Mr. Leigh Price.
Hello.
And Mr. Matt Lovell.
Hello, friends.
Hello. It's been a little while since we've seen you all, so how are we all? Leigh, what have you been up to since we last spoke to you?
I've been playing Tekken.
Which one? All of
the
them?
new one, Tekken 7. So basically, because obviously Kazuya got announced for Super Smash Brothers, it got me thinking about Tekken again. And then the Steam Summer Sale happened, and Tekken 7 was £5. So I was like, well, why not?
Yeah. I do hate the Steam Summer Sale because it's just a case of, well, I did actually want to play that game 3 years ago, and it's a couple of quid. I'll buy it, and then you end up spending more money than makes logical sense.
Yeah, I mean, I say like I bought Tekken 7 for a £5 as if it was the only game that I bought in the Steam Summer Sale, and we all know that is not true. Yeah, I've been sort of getting into Tekken 7 because I've played like some of them in the past, but I thought I might as well jump onto the most recent one, see where it's at the moment, and I think it's my favourite out of all the ones I've played. That includes like 3, 5, and Tag Tournament 2 are the ones I play.
So I take it you're not a cheat and don't play as Eddie Guardo, just roll around on the floor.
No, I've actually picked up Lucky Chloe, who's the new character, who is just as bad as Eddie for all the breakdancing, but she's even more leaning into the dancing side of it. She's a bizarre character in the sense that she genuinely feels like she's there just to dance, and if you get in the way, that's on you. She just feels like such a troll character. Even one of her victory animations is, "You just lost to Lucky Chloe." like that's look what you've done. You lost to her, the girl with the cat ears.
Yeah. Is it going to be like the Shane character, like you'll get at esports conventions, like when you have it with Super Smash Brothers, and you play as Captain Falcon and just knee people off the side constantly, and that's the only move that you do. It's like that's the cheap character. You're not supposed to play them professionally.
I think like from what I've seen, like Lucky Chloe has been like a tournament winner before, because like some of her moveset is kind of ridiculous. Like because it is kind of like Eddie Gordo in that you're just flailing around all over the place, and it's high and low all at the same time, and it's really hard to block. But try some of the newer characters who I really don't recognize at all, and there's some characters who are in previous Tekkens who I still don't recognize because they changed their design so much. Like Lei Wulong doesn't look like himself anymore. I don't know what they did to him.
I think the last time I played a Tekken game, I tried to play the story mode, and it was the most convoluted chaos I've ever seen.
The amazing read is to just look at the Tekken timeline, like the Tekken canon, because it is absolutely insane.
The
and then some
story.
games don't exist, some games. It's brilliant.
The Tekken story is absurd, and this has like a full-on story mode that's basically just all about the Mishimas and how much they all want to kill each other, and it's ridiculous anime nonsense. Even though it doesn't look like an anime, it feels like one. Like there's a bit where Heihachi tries to kill his own son with a space laser.
Fair enough.
And then his son, and then Kazuya comes along and decides, I'm going to get revenge on that by shooting his satellite out of the sky with my face laser. And it's all just about like the devil gene and how like Heihachi's the only one in the family who doesn't have it, because like his son and his grandson have it because of his wife, and she shows up as well in a flashback, and she can summon a tiger because why not.
This basically sounds like Fast and the Furious, the video game franchise. It's just each installment just gets more and more ridiculous than the last one.
I think this is like why this is kind of the fighting game that I've gotten into, because I really don't like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat. I've tried to get into them and just cannot do it. But Tekken, I've always enjoyed Tekken. but I think the story also helps with it because it is just so ridiculous. It's just like here's a really old man who won't die because he's too stubborn to die, and here's his son and grandson who are both secretly devils, and they're all trying to kill each other by throwing each other into lava all the time, or Heihachi will shoot his entire family into space at one point, and it's just. And all the side characters just get weird as well when you start bringing them in.
Yeah, I think I looked into like King's backstory and I got confused around the third or fourth King.
Yeah, there are too many kings. Like,
like Nina and Anna as well, where there's cryogenic freezing and all sorts of stuff going on. It's really good.
Yeah, I think Nina looks like she's in her mid-20s, but he's actually like supposed to be 60, 70 or something. It's just due to all the experimentation and freezing that's happened to her over the years.
Yeah, isn't Paul a robot as well now? Or there's Paul robots or some weirdness like that?
No, Paul seems normal still. He's one of the few normal ones apart from his hair. I mean, standard. It's standard fighting game hair. Let's be honest. But
yeah,
I'm trying to think. There is like the Jack robots.
Jack, sorry, that's all right.
They've been there since the beginning, and then there's also a second robot now, who I think got introduced in Tekken 5 or something, and she's like anime girl robot with a jetpack.
Is that because Xiao Yu doesn't dress as a schoolgirl being escorted by a panda anymore?
Yeah.
It is the most insane video game franchise I think I've ever seen. It's like with Yoshimitsu. It's like, let's have this ancient samurai just appear.
Yoshimitsu is especially weird in 7 because he's basically some weird squid monster now, and I don't know what's going on. It's like I saw him on the character select screen, and I was just like, how is that Yoshimitsu? That's a squid.
So I remember
it has some of the best music though as well.
Oh yeah.
And the best intros as well. Like number 2 and number 3 still have some of the best intros. I love it for that.
Like in terms of like music as well, like the Smash selection is brilliant because they put almost 40 songs from Tekken from across like all the games, and some of the choices are superb. Like they put Moonlit Wilderness from 5 in there, which is one of my favorite tracks, and the track that's gotten a lot of people talking is Yodeling in Meadow Hill. Has been added to Smash Brothers, and yes, it is a yodeling track. It's like full on like the Tekken sort of dance music kind of style, but there's yodeling on top of it as well, and it's just amazing.
just insane from top to bottom, that game franchise. Any other exciting things you've been up to?
I finished Mass Effect finally.
One or all the
just one. And it's one of those things. Like I really enjoyed the story up until the end, but the gameplay did get so tedious by the end. It seems to be the consensus with the first game that it's just not as good. Although the writing is excellent, you're kind of just playing it just to get ready for the second.
Yeah, I'm currently working my way through Mass Effect 1 on the Legendary Edition. I've just got to the monkey mission, which is the worst mission of any game of all time.
I remember now.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's not a fun mission.
That is horrible. It's like, one of the monkeys took this thing from us. Now you've got to find it. Just go across the whole planet and try to find the one monkey that's coming.
You've got to scan like 120 different monkeys to find which one it is. You can actually just drive over the monkeys and jet the corpses. But it depends on which way that you like to play Mass Effect. Yeah. Cool. Keith, what have you been up to the last few weeks?
I haven't been beating anybody up in Tekken. It's been a while since I played a Tekken game. But, I guess nobody wants to play against me anyway because I do like to pick Eddie. But, I was pleased to get hold of a comic I've been looking forward to for a while. Released this week as we're recording, which was the Shaky Kane and Krent Abel anthology. Which is just magnificent. It's like old school indie, crazy comics from just material that they hadn't published before, and it's insane and nuts. And I'm looking forward to reading it properly. But yeah, I was very much looking forward to this oversized anthology. I had the last one that was in Nostalgia and Comics.
I did see you were raving about it in
tomorrow.
your comic roundup this week.
Yeah.
I was going to go pick up my copy tomorrow, Keith. So.
Well, I had the last one. I had asked them to put it onto my regular order, but they must have forgotten, which is fine. But they should have known. I've been raving about it for weeks, so they should have known that like all the Geeky Brummie listeners in Birmingham have been rushing to Worlds Apart to pick it up. So I'm looking forward to that. And I fell down another comics hole on eBay, and I don't know why. I think I read an article about it a couple of weeks back, and I kind of thought, well, I haven't got that, and I haven't read it in a long time. And the last time I read it was as black and white reprints in something in the UK. So I ended up buying all 7 issues of the Marvel Logan's Run comic, which is 4 or 5 issues, kind of retelling the film story, and kind of an epilogue, and then 2 random stories that don't really end up going nowhere because they cancel it. But one of the issues actually is for some reason in a backup strip, the first solo appearance of Thanos and Drax the Destroyer. So that was quite interesting. Yeah, it's in the story. I think it's called The Last Flower, and it's like 8 pages of random stuff. But No, this is well before the Thanos Copter. But it's just a random backup strip in an issue of Logan's Run, the official adaptation of the film. You just think this is just so random. It's pretty cool. So I managed to pick that up for a bit of a steal, which is quite good. And then I've been watching Camp Cretaceous on Netflix, which I've kind of decided is probably better than the films in a lot of ways. They've introduced another mutated hybrid dinosaur. So we had the Indominus Rex in the film, which to be honest wasn't that scary. And they've introduced, I think it's called the Scorpius Rex, which is like that. It's one bad ASS of a monster. It's pretty scary. It's more something out of a horror movie than a Jurassic Park movie. But even though it's kind of based, it's aimed at teens, and it's got very cliched kind of like, blogger teen, geek teen, survival teen, whatever. It's pretty cool. I'm quite enjoying it. It's a good show, and they don't shy away from the fact that like people get eaten. So that's been kind of good. Yeah.
To say like the first Jurassic Park. Well, saying that, Jurassic World had some pretty damn violent moments in the first the bit with the pterodactyls at the start.
Yeah. But if you've not seen Jurassic World, Camp Cretaceous, it's actually pretty good on Netflix. I recommend it.
Matt, what have you been up to the last few weeks?
Well, at work, we've resumed, now lockdown restrictions are easing, we've resumed our sort of socially distanced film with cocktail nights in our full IMAX. And the one coming up is Dirty Dancing. So as part of sort of my kind of marketing for that, I've been reading up on loads of Dirty Dancing trivia. And then I fell down a hole of drama that is Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey and their whole relationship before, during, and after the film, alongside loads of other sort of like little tidbits. So, for example, Patrick Swayze wore a girdle throughout the entire thing to make himself look thinner and younger.
Oh, I can believe that.
But yeah, and if you've ever, even if you don't like the film, I would wholly recommend. It's one of those perfect on-screen things where on screen they look like they've got so much chemistry, and then actually behind the scenes they were really up and down constantly, where one minute they were really fine together, they really did well, and then other times they refused to be in the same room with each other. They would have a massive tiff before each scene. So mostly I've been reading up on my sort of Dirty Dancing trivia, but elsewhere did my first Geeky Brummie esports update. So that was released last Monday, and there's another one coming out probably the next day after this recording airs. But a lot of that is around things like Dota 2 and the big drama that's happening with the International, where effectively despite pandemic aside, despite all the reassurances, Sweden have kind of turned around and said they don't recognise Dota 2 and esports in general as sporting events. So therefore, they're not giving it sports classification, which means there's loads of visa issues with a load of the athletes coming over, loads of the teams coming over, and all the personalities. So that's kind of prompted a lot of drama, should we say, online in terms of Valve are now kind of looking for other places in Europe to go, which has prompted a couple of people to be like, come to the UK.
And the NEC has hosted many big esports events as part of EGX in the past.
Yeah, well, to be honest, the big one is, so for a couple of years, one of the Dota 2 majors was actually hosted at what is now, is it Utilita Arena?
Yeah.
They change the name every 5 minutes, but
anybody who's local knows it as the NIA.
Yeah, on the canal, really, really pretty. But and that was actually one of the most successful European tournaments in not just Dota history, but esports history. It broke records for ESL consecutively 2 years in a row, both in sort of capacity at the actual event, but also viewership online. There was over 300 million people from across the world who sort of tuned in, and it was a massive kind of boost really for Birmingham as a sort of global city, but also for the UK. It kind of legitimised a lot of esports, and it got coverage on BBC Three and then later BBC Sport in 2020 when they had to host the online version. And yeah, it's prompted a lot of people to kind of go, maybe the UK, not for this TI, it's no time, but actually considering the UK more for flagship world esporting events.
Yeah, because I know the Invitational's been in the US a lot of its history. I think it's like about 70% of the events have been in the US. And it's an international game now, esports, so it would be nice to see alternate locations spring up.
Yeah, and I think in terms of where that prompted me to go down that rabbit hole is because they've dropped the compendium for this year. But whereas normally the compendium would be all about filling up that prize pool, it's not this year because obviously it's TI 20, not TI 21, kind of like the Euro, should we say. So actually the compendium is a bit cheaper and everything's a little bit less money grubby. If it's still all going towards Valve, but in terms of the challenges aren't so ridiculous, and it's not so much like you have to pay $60 to get to this level because it will take you literally every minute of every hour of your life for the next 3 months to get there otherwise.
Yeah, I'm sure Gabe Newell's still swimming in his bathtub full of money from the Steam summer sale as it is, let alone getting the Dota money on top. But
it's Steam summer sales because all the memes come out. All the memes come out everywhere.
The wallet.
Like the gospel music and like Gaben just rising up with Steam summer sales.
Yeah. Cool.
But yeah, what about you, man? What have you been up to?
I bought Resident Evil 2 in the Steam summer sale. Not played it yet, but it's one of those things where you buy the game and then it sits in your Steam library of, look at this archive of games that I will never actually get around to playing. So, because I'm still too busy playing Mass Effect Legendary Edition, I can't. I'm now at the age where I can only play one game at a time because otherwise it's too distracting and I can't remember the control scheme. Like the old gentleman that I am, and they're going, what's up, what's down? But, so still working my way through Mass Effect, as I've said. I've been enjoying Loki so far, and the latest episode, which dropped the Wednesday before this recording, was... I'm not going to say anything because Keith's not watched it yet, but it's the best episode of the series so far, put it that way. So I've been enjoying that. Been enjoying the Bad Batch on Disney Plus. It's Clone Wars Series 8, as I said. it's just carried on straight away from there. So it's been really good, and they're expanding on Omega's character quite a bit at the minute. So it's been interesting to see that. And watched the season 8 finale of The Blacklist this week, which is a show that I've been enjoying since back in the day. I think it's the only show now where I still actually watch it when it comes out on the actual release date, rather than saving it up to binge watch. A confusing ending. I know Keith watches it as well. Have you watched the finale, Keith?
No, I've got it on TiVo to watch.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping they go just reveal the fact that everything we've suspected from the beginning is true.
Oh, I'm not going to say anything, but me and Viv were left kind of shocked by the ending.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So I'm going to be very interested where season 9, which might be the final season, goes, because John Bokenkamp's also left along with Megan Boone. So co-creator.
If you've just given away a spoiler,
No.
Is that common knowledge?
It's been in the press quite a lot that Megan Boone's leaving the show. But it was revealed this week John Bokenkamp, who's been like the main creator, the showrunner since series 1. So I think his co-runner is taking over duties. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next with that.
It didn't do any damage to Supernatural when Eric Kripke left, so it could go on for 15 seasons.
Well, I'm just hoping it's not a repeat of The Walking Dead, where they got rid of Frank Darabont, and that's when I gave up watching it.
So, having not sort of seen it, but is it, in terms of the quality of it, as it's hurtling towards kind of like a final season, has the writing stayed satisfactory, or are you starting to see suddenly characters are doing irrational things, or things are happening really, really fast for plot?
It's the James Spader show. That's all I'm going to say. You're there for one particular person, and that's to watch James Spader play Red. And all the other characters are secondary to that, because James Spader on screen is just a masterful thing, and every single second he's on the screen, he just overshadows everybody else at the stage. It's like when he's not in an episode, it's very keenly felt that he's not there.
Yeah, it's a show that's immune to anything remotely akin to common sense or like logic. It's utter nonsense, but brilliant.
Yeah. So I think that was Red coming past his helicopter. But,
That's like you're getting buzzed by something.
But yeah, I mean, if you've not watched The Blacklist, I'm going to say try a couple of episodes, and if you warm to James Spader, you'll enjoy it. But if you don't click with James Spader, I don't think you'll ever get around to enjoying it as much. All I ever think of is The Office US, when he takes over as the owner of the paper company, and that's who I imagine he is, still playing that character, just in The Blacklist as this like most wanted FBI criminal. Phrase it pretty much the same, so it's amazing. So if you ever watch The Office US and you like James Spader in that, you'll probably enjoy The Blacklist. So coming up on today's show, we'll be talking Black Widow, which is due for release next week at the time of recording, July the 7th in the UK on screens, and July the 9th on Disney Plus and on release in the US. We'll also be talking Sonic, as he's got a birthday and he's still running. I don't know how his knees are hanging up these days. I'm sure he's on the cod liver oil tablets by now. We have a little game to play, which is More or Less. So I've got some geeky questions for the guys to try and work out which is the bigger one. And Leigh is interviewing a Tom Keane, who has released his new game, Unknown Number. So
it hasn't released it. It's out next year.
It's out next year. So we're talking about Tom Keane's new game.
Tom Keane?
Not Tom Keane.
Wasn't that the name of the...
Tom Keane is in the Blacklist, yes.
It's in the Blacklist, yeah.
Yes.
It's all connected, as Gently would say.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to that. Plus, we'll go into Keith's comic roundup now, and we'll have Leigh's games of the week for later in the show. But we'll see you shortly.
What's happening to you these days? Having lots of fun? Believe me, I know some folks that are in for some fun. Let's see it. Take a minute. See what's in it.
But you can see how dangerous this could be.
But first, we're going to have a little fun tonight, folks.
It's time for the Geeky Brummie podcast.
And now it's time to take some of the comics out now and coming soon in the pull list. Finally making it onto the shelves this week, we have Star Trek Year 5 issue 21 from IDW Publishing. This is written by Brandon Easton with art by Silvia Califano. In this issue, with Spock still missing, the crew of the Enterprise needs to figure out where and when he is if they want to save the future. Meanwhile, on Vulcan, Spock is faced with a choice that won't only change his life, but Vulcan society as he knows it. The final voyages of the original mission continue in this comic. Next up, we have We Only Find Them When They're Dead, issue 7 from Boom Studios. This is written by the fantastic Al Ewing with art by Simone DeMeo. In this issue, Marilyn Chen, ambassador for the Inner Worlds, arrive at Malik's flight to broker peace between the Harvesters and the Worshippers. When Jason Hauer, one of the fated Vihan 2 crew, is pulled into these talks, he will soon discover that, like all politics, nothing is as it seems. Also out now, and my comic of the week for this week is Kane and Abel, a one-shot from Image. And in this issue, comic book wise guys Kane and Abel serve up a summer dump cake of genre-busting mischief and mask mayhem in this oversized anthology of never-before-published strips. Slip in and out of Subconscious with the astonishing shield bug, surf the flesh wave with Black Fur in Who Fears the Death Roach, journey into the sub-basement in the gasoline-tinged Dust Mites, and ride into the Creep Zone with Nightmare and Sleepy in the aptly named Creep Zone. Due out next week, we have Skybound X #1 from Skybound. This is written and illustrated by Robert Kirkman, Chris Dinges, James Harron, Till Walden, Matthew Roberts and Ryan Oatley. In this issue, celebrate a sensational 10 years of Skybound with a cavalcade of your favourite creators for all new stories of your favourite series, past, present and future. Each issue of this oversized weekly series will kick off with a new chapter of the serialised Walking Dead story, Rick Grimes 2000. In addition, they'll be debuting all new series and characters every issue, starting with the first appearance of the most requested Walking Dead character of all time, Clementine, star of the best-selling Telltale's Walking Dead video game series. And did we mention all new Ultra Mega and Manifest Destiny stories? If you want to know what to expect in Skybound's next 10 years, it all starts here. Also out next week from Marvel Comics, we'll have Ultraman, The Trials of Ultraman #4 from Kyle Higgins and Matt Groom with art by Francesco Manna. And in this issue, in Iceland, the critics of the USP are uniting and they finally have what they need to win the rest of the world over. But what are the dark consequences of their actions, and will Ultraman choose to save them from those consequences? Or perhaps a better question to ask is, with opposition mounting, alliances fraying and trust disintegrating, can he? Also out next week, we have the new X-Men #1 from Marvel Comics, written by Jerry Duggan with art by Pepe Larraz. And in this issue, these X-Men are fearless. The heroes of Krakoa are here to save the planet. Things might be complicated between the nation of Krakoa and the rest of the world, but to the X-Men, things are simple. You do what's right, you protect those who need protecting, and you save the world we all share. Cyclops, Marvel Girl, Sunfire, Rogue, Wolverine, Synch and Polaris are the chosen champions of mutant kind, and they will not shirk from any battle for their home planet. Scheduled, but may slip in the schedule, is Star Trek Year 5 #22 from IDW Publishing. Again, written by Jackson Lansing with Colin Kelly and art by Stephen Thompson. In this issue, for 5 years, the USS Enterprise and her crew have journeyed to the edge of the known universe, tackling impossible challenges and menacing foes along the way. But the biggest challenge of all awaits them here at home. And no matter what happens, the lives of Captain Kirk, Spock, Sulu, Chekhov and the rest of the crew will be changed forever. The grand finale of Star Trek Year 5 begins here. Next up, we have Fight Girls #1. This is published by Artists, Writers and Artisans Inc. And this is written and illustrated by Frank Cho. In this issue, 10 hard-as-nails women face off in an ancient contest of champions where the winner truly takes all, the title of Queen of the Galaxy. To win the challenge, each contestant must survive the hazards of the planet's harsh landscape, the ferocious predators on and below its surface, and their fellow contestants. This edition of the contest has a twist. One of the contestants is an infiltrator who has her eye on something bigger than the prize. Who is she, and what does she really want? And finally, and what will be next week's Comic of the Week, is The Swamp Thing #5 from DC Comics, written by Ram V and drawn by a friend of the show, John McCrae. This is Becoming Part 5. Newly armed with the knowledge and powers he gained from the Green, and yet lonelier than ever, Levi Camille is pulled once more into service as the avatar of the Green is summoned by primal forces to the city of London, where old ideas lie buried, slowly leaching into the reality above. The scars of old wars and the dangers of past ideologies resurface as the Swamp Thing must team up with an old trench-coated acquaintance and his new protege to save the present from the atrocities of our past. And that's it for this week's Pull List. As always, you can find these and more great comics in our On the Radar feature every Wednesday on our Twitter feed. And until I see you next time, happy reading. And now back to the main show.
So we're getting a Black Widow movie, which is kind of out of timeline with the rest of the MCU that we've got on TV at the moment. So if you've been keeping up to date on Disney Plus, you'll have seen Falcon and Winter Soldier, WandaVision, and currently airing Loki, whereas this is kind of the prequel to Black Widow turning up in Iron Man 2. But it's due for release on July the 7th in the UK and July the 9th on Disney Plus if you're wanting to watch it there, starring Scarlett Johansson herself as a Black Widow, Florence Pugh, David Harbour, Ray Winston, William Hurt is back, who you might remember from the Hulk movie, and we've got Rachel Weisz as well. So it's the film sees Romanoff on the run and being forced to confront her past in Russia. So is it a bit of a too late for this film, do you think, guys?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I do like Johansson's kind of portrayal of Black Widow, and I think in the Avengers, especially in sort of Endgame, I liked how she got a bit more screen time, but I'll be interested to see. It's nice. Again, it'll be interesting to see a movie that's not all about necessarily superpowers. She's still obviously a ridiculous human, but at least she's a bit more kind of down to earth. So it'll be interesting to see how Marvel kind of shoot the movie, if that makes sense. It wouldn't be the typical kind of Marvel trope we had in the previous phases, I would imagine. However, I do kind of feel like the timing of it is a bit weird, to be honest, because it's kind of, as much as we're all ready for the next phase, I kind of feel like they're still trying to squeeze a bit more out of that previously, if that makes sense. So for me, I would probably see it, but I'm not, out of all the Marvel films, it's not exactly what I'm desperate to see.
Yourself, Keith?
I think in terms of it's taken Marvel so long to get to sorry, that must be my lunch.
Sorry.
In terms of the Marvel getting to a point where they've got a female-led film and a predominantly female cast, the majority of the rest of the cast are actually are female. I mean, it's Florence Pugh being in the Marvel universe now is that's can only be a good thing. But it doesn't bother me that it's out of chronology at all. In a sense, I'm quite happy that it's not leading in to the next Marvel movie, because in some instances that could be a little tiresome, that every movie leads into the next. And I kind of like the idea that this, like comics, is here's a story of Natasha, a character you know and love. She's got a lot of history. You've only seen her in a few films. So here's a story that took place at some point earlier on. So in terms of this particular film, we have a flashback to, I believe, the 1980s, and we find out what happened in Budapest, and then kind of the actual bulk of the film takes place somewhere between kind of Winter Soldier, Civil War.
I think it's post-Civil War is the starting point in the movie.
Yeah, so it's kind of...
And then it's going to be flashbacks and stuff after that.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's like it's like reading a 3-issue, 4-issue maxi series of an untold tale from the life of the Black Widow or Hawkeye or whatever. So I'm quite happy to watch it. She's a great character. The cast itself is really great. So as long as the storytelling and the action and the director they've got on board is somebody who's got a lot of talent, and I think that just tell a good story, and I'm down for it. And it's it doesn't bother me that it's not it's not a pivotal moment in Phase 4 or whatever it is. I'm quite happy if Marvel start just going, here's a film about something that's not connected to anything else. Enjoy, and you haven't got to worry about it.
Yeah, I've been looking into the director a little bit, who's Kate Shortland, and she's not really done that much from what I believe. She's done a couple of independent films. The first big film she had was a film called Short Somersault.
Yeah,
she won quite a few awards for. I think that was Cannes and went around there. Then a big break for that between that and Law, and then Berlin Syndrome, and then now Black Widow.
Yeah, I think it's showing that Marvel have got not taking risks. I don't want to make it sound that it's a bit patronising towards those directors, but they've got Chloe Zhao doing the Eternals, who until people had heard of her from doing Nomadland. I think it's good that it's not big name blockbuster. It's not the J.J. Abrams Marvel movie or whatever ridiculous thing that they're doing elsewhere in their franchise movies. To just be giving interesting directors interesting opportunities to do things with interesting characters, and I think that's intrinsically what is at the core of what Marvel can do. Is they've got a bunch of really interesting characters outside of those that we've seen, and we're going to see some of them with the TV shows they're doing. We're going to get Moon Knight at some point later on. Yeah, we're going to get She-Hulk doing some interesting things. So I think that there's enough for everybody to have if you're a big Black Widow fan, you've now got a Black Widow movie to watch, and it looks great. Yeah. David Harbour looks great, and it just seems like it'll be a fun movie, and I'm going to go and see it at the cinema. I'm lucky enough that my local cinema is not going to be massively busy, so I'm not too worried about it in terms of the ongoing COVID situation. But I would want to see it on the big screen anyway, because I could stream it at Disney. It's a bit expensive. I will probably, buy the Blu-ray at some point later on, but I want to be immersed in that experience when I'm watching it. My phone's off. It's in my pocket. There's not somebody lightly ringing me up, or I'm not kind of thinking, what if something else might happen? I can just sit there for 2 hours and be carried away to a bit of fun, exciting, entertaining place.
Yeah, Viv and I are going to watch it on 2D IMAX because I like big screens, mainly because my vision's rubbish nowadays. But it's kind of like, it would probably cost less to watch it on Disney Plus for the both of us rather than going to pay for 2D IMAX things. But I think a film like this, and especially being a Marvel movie, which is known for lots of explosions, lots of special effects, etc., watching it on the small screen at home, are you going to get that same experience? I mean, personally, I think it's a no.
Well, if you're Martin Scorsese, it's not cinematic, so therefore you don't need to go to the cinema. But it's.
So I was going to say, it is really interesting because I know a while ago, many moons ago, we obviously had this topic about is cinema dead versus digital releases. But actually, I'm exactly the same. I will watch this movie and I will definitely go to cinema for it. And even if I'm I think even if I'm not that wowed by the film, I will actually enjoy the actual experience because I have missed going to the cinema and seeing a film like this on the big screen with the big speakers, with the popcorn, that whole experience.
Yeah, because we know Disney have been releasing these movies on kind of the Disney Plus / theatre things. We had Fire and the Last Dragon, we've had Mulan. Luca, I think, had a very limited cinema release at the same time as being on Disney Plus. So it's a case of, is this Disney's model going forward to try and capture both ends of the market at once? Of the, if you don't want to go to the cinema or you're not into that cinema experience, you can still watch it at home for the cost of a Blu-ray, really. but watch it at simultaneous release. And to me, does it kind of tarnish the cinema experience a little bit? That kind of thing that you used to have this bit of exclusivity with going to the cinema, and that you'd watch it because it was out at that time, and you had this whole fear of missing out if you didn't go to the cinema and watch it. Do you think it's kind of lost that luster a little bit?
I mean, for me, I think before I would have said yes, but I actually don't think so, because it's that kind of thing of the people who would buy it when it first came out to watch it at home, they wouldn't have probably gone to cinema anyway, if that makes sense. I think if people want to go to cinema, they would go to cinema. The only difference is the people who bought it digitally, they would have just waited for it to come on some sort of platform or to go digital before they'd buy it. That's kind of my gut feeling. Actually, you know, after this prolonged period of not having the cinema, I think, yeah, I do genuinely think it's not going to have as much of an impact as we first thought.
Yeah,
Leigh, I know you're not a Marvel fan as such, but would you consider the home experience rather than going to the cinema to watch it, or would you want to watch a film of a different type at the cinema?
Well, I mean, like, obviously I wouldn't see Black Widow, but like in terms, I probably would prefer the cinema just because it's like I don't feel that putting it on digital at the same time dilutes that experience, because they are two different viewing experiences. You know, you're watching it at home, you're kind of at the whims of whatever your setup is at home. So if you've just got like a standard TV, it's not going to be the same as watching it on a big screen with the surround sound and all that. And you know, the cinema is an experience, really. I think, and also, like, if I was to like watch Black Widow, I think, knowing Disney's model, I probably would prefer to see it at the cinema just on virtue of it being cheaper, because I'd likely go see it by myself. And since Disney's pricing is like the equivalent of a family of four going to the cinema, it's just like, yeah, I think the cinema is clearly the better option there. But even then, it is just that experience, I think.
Yeah.
And I think people want that experience too.
I think you bang on the money with all of that, because cinema's struggled throughout its history with the idea of like something else is going to come along that's going to take our audience away from us, whether it be radio, whether it be television. And you know, cinema has gone, oh, we'll do Technicolor and VistaVision and 3D and all the rest of it. But as a viewer, and it's something I've grown up with as a cinema goer. It's, you know, some of my earliest childhood memories are going to the cinema. It's something I absolutely love. It's one of my favorite things to do. And I would go to the cinema to see films I own on VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, digital, to see it in the cinema. You know, if someone was to go, oh, we're going to be showing a brilliant print of Buckaroo Banzai at the cinema, it's like, yeah, I've got that on VHS and I've got it in comic form and I've got it but to see it in the cinema would be brilliant. You know, it was 1984 the last time I did that. So the whole experience is the thing. That's and it doesn't matter what the film is. It doesn't matter if it's this or A Quiet Place 2 or Parasite. There's just something of being sat in a darkened room with a projector and being consumed by what you're watching. And any film, whether it's a low budget indie or a big budget Marvel movie, it takes you to another level watching it in that situation that you never are able to duplicate at home.
Yeah, I was going to say, in that home experience, I think I understand some people can't go to the cinema or might have young children and it'd be really difficult for them to find childcare, etc. So this is a way for them to watch it. But as you said, the distractions at home are 10, 20 times greater than when you're at the cinema. At the cinema, you're pretty much forced to stare at the screen and not have your phone on you, unless you're a really nasty antisocial person who goes to the cinema and does that and lights the beacon of Gondor on your mobile phone halfway through the film. But at the cinema, you're there for that experience. You're there, and you said you're spending the extra money to sit in a big screen with the surround sound to enjoy that. Whereas at home, myriad of interruptions. I'm sure people will be sat there looking at their phones, checking their phones, having interruptions, taking phone calls, etc. Surfing the internet, browsing Reddit, or social media or something like that whilst watching the film. So, as I said, I don't think that true cinema experience is ever going to disappear. But I'm assuming from Disney's balance sheet that this must be popular because it's not just been one movie they've done it now, and it's like creeping into the MCU. Whereas it's been previously just Disney movies. So is this going to be their modus operandi going forward of we'll release it simultaneously at the time? You can go to the theatre or you can watch it at home and we'll make our money either way.
I think, like, you're saying about, like, distractions at home and people not being able to go to the cinema, and people with young children and things like that. I think by opening it up this way, you are kind of creating two audiences. That, like, if you just release it in the cinema, that second audience just isn't going to see it. Whereas, the first audience is going to see it in the cinema regardless. But if you have both at the same time, you're reaching both those audiences at the same time. That's more money. That works out for them, and I can see why they'd want to continue it long term.
Definitely.
Yeah, I wonder as well if there's an issue down the line that might become more prevalent as time goes on. Obviously, films could be pirated in the cinema. Not great quality. But the ease of pirating something that's being streamed to your home computer or laptop, I would assume at some point later on that is going to become a bigger issue for these services, that people aren't going to subscribe, but that content is going to get out and it's going to be of a high quality, and they at some point they're not going to make as much money as they think they're going to do from being clever. I wouldn't mind if there was a release window for each. So it was out for a few weeks at the cinema, then it was a digital release with the kind of premiere access, and then there'd be kind of like the traditional. I mean, at the moment they're doing a ridiculous thing where the digital release of the film comes before the physical release.
Yeah.
So
I think it's October is when the free version drops on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
So when they remove the paywall for it, so it's that there is that option for more patient people who are subscribers. But it does feel like we're heading back to cable in the early 90s kind of scenario again now, where you got your Netflix package, you got your Amazon Prime package, you got your Disney Plus package, and now you got this is the exclusive package on top of the normal package where you have to pay. It's like watching a Frank Bruno fight back in the day, that you have to pay the extra 10 quid to watch it live rather than watching the recap the next day.
But I think
I do kind of worry about that, especially with the way that Disney are aggressively pricing these.
Yeah, but then my local cinema at the moment is charging £3.50 a ticket for any film, any time, any day. Which Disney, they whatever it is, they're going to be charging for 20 quid for the Black Widow. So I can take my entire family and some randos for less than that. So I can just be handing out tickets in the street. Come and see the Black Widow. Yeah, it's great. I'm cheaper than Disney. It's like...
Yeah, but then you'd be a scalper, Keith, and there are laws against that.
It wouldn't be scalping; it'd be gifting. I would just give the tickets away.
First, we cinema tickets, then suddenly all the graphics cards are gone, and then you're living on your yacht, you bought your cryptocurrency. Where does it end, Keith?
Oh, Keith, if you're buying up PS5s, please send me one.
You can have a PS5. You can have a PS5.
Yeah. As I said, going back to the film itself, I will be watching it. I think both you, Keith, myself, Keith, and Matt are probably too far invested into the Marvel Cinematic Universe that will be in our 80s, and we'll still be forced to watch whatever comes out by that point, because God Emperor Kevin Feige will be releasing his regular schedule of MCU movies and TV series at that point. But now I'm kind of, as you said, I'm kind of quite looking forward to a bit of a side story rather than having something in the continuity. And I think the TV shows that we've had this year, which we talked about in the past episodes, they have neatly slotted in to do that plot growth between the films. And there's enough in there that I think the way that the way it feels it's going to be done is, you don't have to watch the Marvel TV shows to watch the films, because there'll be enough exposition and backstory and plot to link them all together. But it'll give you that fully rounded experience, which is what they tried to do originally with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which didn't really work with connecting the films together. But this feels like it's much better now with stuff like Loki and Falcon and Winter Soldier. It feels like that's much better in ramping up our expectations for the next phase. But it also frees up them to do these one-off movies a bit more. I mean, Shang-Chi's still my one film of the year that I think that'll completely blow this out of the water, but we shall see. I think it's going to be a nice little diversion.
Yeah, well, the latest trailer they released was superb. That was like, oh yeah, I'm down for this movie.
Oh, Tony Leung, there you go. You'd sold me straight away when you got Simu Liu and Tony Leung in a film. That's fine. Yeah. I want to see a Wong Kar-wai Marvel Cinematic Universe movie now. But anyway, as I mentioned, release cinemas July the 7th. Disney streaming services, Disney Plus, on July the 9th if you don't want to go to the cinema and watch it. But if you're a Marvel fan, I'm sure you already got your tickets to whatever kind of method that you're going to be watching on.
Earlier this week, I sat down with Tom Keane from Godolphin Games to talk about their in-development title, Unknown Number, a first-person talker. Here are just some of the things that Tom had to say about his game.
This game for us is kind of exploring what voice control would look like. You know, if a core mechanic, and you know, Unknown Number is for us like the first game in, you know, a series of games that will keep experimenting with voice and keep pushing that as a core mechanic. You know, in a way, there's a set of things that really work, that people really love and keep coming back and kind of reiterating on. And what we were interested in, you know, as a group, was going, well, what hasn't been done within gaming that has been done elsewhere? And if we collide those two things, what could we do? Voice is so central to everything. Are you voice ready yet? Is your brand voice ready yet? Is your fridge voice ready yet? You know, and it's literally that level of like, you know, it's like voice obsession. And then, you know, at the same time, I'm like playing, you know, a bunch of games, and then it's just like, wait a second, there's like no synergy, no like crossover between those two conversations. Mm-hmm. You know, when we first built a prototype for the game, the concept was, why don't we actually use real phone calls and call people up, and then they can play the game by speaking down the phone to these kind of pre-recorded actors and action down the end of the phone. What we realized was actually doing it down a real phone call is annoying for so many different reasons. It's annoying because voice recognition down phone lines is pretty much one of the worst things of all time. I don't know if you've ever been on a customer service call. Like, it's punishing.
Yeah.
Punishing. And the reason is because, you know, the fidelity isn't good enough, right? But the third most important thing was that you get no visual feedback. What we've moved into now is essentially, you know, the game simulates a series of phone calls from you know, two eco-warriors, eco-terrorists, whatever you want to call them, in the middle of this very daring heist in the kind of the North Sea, trying to steal many millions of dollars in cryptocurrency from this kind of oil baron, and they need your help, and they you know, accidentally dial your number into chaos, and you get swept into this kind of drama, and you kind of, you know, armed with only your voice, you have to help them succeed, or you can stab them in the back if you wish. You know, there's all sorts of different options. The crisis we are in right now as a globe is, you know, the climate emergency, and I just think, you know, just as kind of in the 60s, 70s, the crisis that everyone was in at that moment, or so they perceived to be, was the Cold War, and every single movie at that time was about the Cold War. You know, every single movie had the setting of the Cold War. Every James Bond thing was, yeah, we're talking about Blofeld and whatever, but it's really about the Cold War. Today, everything should sort of be about the climate emergency, at least as the kind of the backdrop. And I should really, really, you know, hammer home that this is not a big kind of browbeating, big moralistic thing. You know, we see this as akin to almost like Pirates of the Caribbean in kind of tone and energy.
Yeah.
It should hopefully also make people think and ponder, and also, you know, look into the abyss and wonder about what we can all do to make things better, and what kind of radical actions we might be able to investigate for ourselves. I mean, so I used to work for Xbox, and I was involved in a series of marketing ARGs for or Halo in particular, but also Sunset Overdrive and a couple of other things. And people really loved it, obviously. And I think that was such a great period of experimentation that everyone was going, oh my God, we can link up all these different touch points. I was going, well, how could we, you know, revitalize the ARG? And it's one of the core things we've been doing. So when we test with different accents. And actually, in particular, we run Siri tests, you know, with simulated accents. And we kind of literally just, you know, put it through the machine, and we see kind of what success rates we get back. So kind of accents, but before that, I should say that I've been putting on a lot of very bad accents, really embarrassing myself with my American accent. But yeah, so we've built accent testing into our process. So there is some skill, but it's quite funny because we've never really thought of voice as a skill before, especially not like a mechanic gameplay skill. So that's been sort of part of our process of actually working out what is okay for players to have to do and what isn't okay to ask them to do.
When can we expect to see Unknown Number?
Well, the plan is early 2022, so around March time, we think.
So obviously, like I said, it'd be out in 2022 is what you're aiming for, and it's on PC and mobile, I believe is what you're looking for.
Yeah, it'll be on PC and mobile. Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, it sounds great, and I'm sure that we'll be doing a lot more coverage on that as it gets closer to release. Thank you for joining me, Tom, and sharing your game with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll chat again soon.
That sounds great. Yeah, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
For more of this interview, please check out Geeky Brummie on YouTube, where the full interview will be uploaded, and an article on geekybrummie.com will talk a little bit more about what the game involves. And now, back to the main show.
Gentlemen, I have a game for you. It's been a long while since we played a game, so I thought throw a game out there for us to play. So, got some geeky questions.
I'm ready.
And it's multiple choice. It's a multiple choice. It's either more or less. So, what do we think the answer is, basically? So it's more than one thing or less than another thing. I'm hoping it's straightforward enough that we can follow this quite easily.
So the options are more
or less.
Or less.
Yes.
Right. Okay. I think I understand.
This is still going to go horribly wrong. We have a history with games.
Or if Keith's going to be like those pedants at the checkout, is it going to be greater or fewer?
Oh no. This is like arbitrary facts on top trump games.
Yeah. No, these are actual facts. It's from a game called More or Less, which I've stolen the questions from. So, are we ready for the first question?
How is this working? Is it by person, or are we just shouting out?
We're all answer.
We take a
we
choice?
all answer. You can all take a choice, and then I'll give the answer afterwards. So, for the first question, is the raw material cost incurred by Apple to manufacture an iPhone 11 Pro, which sells for £1,049, more or less than £100? So that's the raw cost of the materials that goes into an iPhone 11. Is it more or less than £100? So Keith's going less.
I'm going to say less, just because that's the kind of thing that people would say about Apple.
Mm-hmm. Matt?
Yeah, I'm thinking.
I'm going to say more. I'm going to say it's like £100 and 1p.
Matt? Sorry, Leigh? You just said that.
I am also going to go with less, I think.
Okay. So no score there for Key or Leigh. Key or Leigh?
Ooh.
Leigh or Key? It's your crime-fighting doppelgangers, Key and Leigh. It's actually about £400 in raw materials to make an iPhone 11 Pro. So Matt scores a point there. What's on for Leigh or Keith? Right, so the next question. In 2019, did IBM employ more or less people than Tesco?
I'm going to let somebody else answer first, and then I can steal one of their answers.
See, logically, I would say more. Just because IBM is international and Tesco is not.
Okay.
Nice. That would be my
nice way of thinking.
So this is 2019.
2019, yes. In the before times, Keith.
Because also this is one of those questions where you're there being like, what about Tesco's sort of like Aldi version called Jack's? Like, are we including those employees? Is that one of those kind of questions? I would probably say they employ less.
Okay.
So Leigh said less.
No, I said more.
You said more. IBM.
Yes.
Employ more
than Tesco.
International business machines, yes.
I'm going to say Tesco employ more people.
Well, Leigh's the only one to score a point on that round because IBM employed 352,000 people and Tesco employed 344,000 people. So yet to score yet, Keith. Yet to score. Right. Okay. Does it take more or less time to boil the average kettle, which takes roughly 160 seconds, versus the world's shortest flight?
Because when you say world's shortest flight, what's
takeoff,
classified
landing?
as?
Yeah.
Go on, who's answering first?
I'm gonna say less.
Less time for the flight or less time for the kettle?
Less time for the flight, just because it's kind of unexpected, and
Okay.
you know that there's going to be like some like crop dusting situation that's going to be like super quick.
All right.
I would say less time for the kettle. So I don't know if that was less or more, but I'm going for
Kettle. Kettle or plane? Kettle or plane. There you go.
kettle.
That's the new game show name. Kettle or plane?
So I can only at least get 1 point on the board here. I've got no way of like getting above Matt or Leigh. As an aeroplane or a helicopter, it's going to take some time to get the engine going and get it into the air and then land again. So I'm going to go with the kettle.
So you're going kettle.
Yeah.
So you're still scoring 0, Keith.
Oh, come on.
Really?
So Leigh's ahead. So the world's shortest flight is only 57 seconds from the island of Westray and Papa Westray in Scotland.
Seriously?
57 seconds, yeah.
In what? A paper aeroplane?
Seriously.
I mean, come on. I've been on aeroplanes. They don't even get to the end of the runway in less than like 4 minutes.
Yes, but those are massive planes, Keith. This is probably going to be a much smaller one that seats maybe 2 people.
Right.
But even still, I want proof. I would demand evidence.
You've got to wind it up beforehand.
I'm Wikipedia.
And flight doesn't count until it leaves the ground.
Yeah.
Could you not just take a really long run and jump? It sounds like it's probably going to be quicker.
It's 2 guys in a cardboard box with the word aeroplane on it, and they just jump over a pond or something.
That's it. It's just a catapult. That's all it is.
Right, are we ready for the next question?
No.
Stupid game.
Could the power consumption used for one Google search light up a 60-watt light bulb for more or less than 10 seconds?
I'm just going to toss a coin now because it makes no difference what I actually think. More than 10 seconds.
Okay.
I'm going to say less time. Less, power, etc.
I'm going to say less as well.
Okay, so Keith actually scores and Matt and Leigh miss out on that one. So, on average, one Google search uses enough power to light a 60-watt light bulb for 17 seconds.
Wow.
Okay. And last question. Was the first commercial compact disc CD produced more or less than 30 years ago?
Well, it's more than 30 years ago.
So you go more.
Yeah, it has to be more, yeah.
Commercial compact disc, yeah?
Yeah, it's got to be. I remember buying one.
Spoil the question, Keith. You're supposed to be trying to get more points than the others.
I can't get more points than anybody else. I basically only got 1 point from just guessing Google a minute ago. I may even have it still here. It could possibly it's either well, it's not the first commercially available one.
My problem with this question is I had to remember exactly when 30 years ago was, because in my head it's still like 1970 something.
Matt?
Oh yeah, I did bad maths. I thought we were still in 2010. Yeah, more.
Okay. You're right. The first commercial CD was produced on the 17th of August 1982.
Yeah.
So before I was born.
Yeah, I think I remember buying either Peter Gabriel, Simple Minds, or Depeche Mode as a compact disc. The kind of mid 80s ish, probably around 86, 87, something like that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that we had CDs when I was very, very young, and that would have been very late 80s. So
don't say that. Don't say you were very young in the late 80s.
I was born in 86, Keane.
So Leigh wins that with 3 points, and Keith and Matt tie with 2 points.
Which is better than I expected, to be honest.
So I'm going to do a question for the audience as well. You can win a shiny Geeky Brummie badge. So the world's most liked photograph on Instagram is of an egg. Has it received more or less than 50 million likes on Instagram? I mean, you guys can answer as well, but it's a question for the audience, so I'm not telling you until next episode.
I'm going to say more, because if it's less, I'm just going to keep refreshing and just make more accounts, just keep liking.
I'm just going to set up.
Either way.
Yeah, just going to set up millions of bot accounts. Just
So is that more right now or when they answer gets revealed? Because if it changes, like Matt said, I mean, it's certainly more than any photo I've put on Instagram. So that's yeah. I would say yeah, it's got to be more than 50 million.
Yeah, I'm going to go with more as well.
Interesting. Matt?
More.
So you all think more. Well, we'll find out next episode. What a cliffhanger.
Oh.
All right, thanks for playing. Back in a second.
Hello, let's talk about Games of the Week for the past 2 weeks. Last week's Indie Game of the Week was Sunhaven, a hybrid of farming simulators like Stardew Valley and traditional top-down RPG titles. It's got a magical world full of quirky characters where you can choose to go adventuring or just stay and chill on your farm. It's an interesting blend that looks like a relaxing time and with a cute art style to accompany it. Overall Game of the Week last week, however, was Scarlet Nexus, which is a lot of anime nonsense from Bandai Namco, but it's my kind of anime nonsense. Especially after I recently played through Code Vein, which has a similar style, although, as far as I know, the games are unconnected. It's an action RPG set in a post-apocalyptic world where a race of creatures known as the Others have invaded and are trying to eat human brains. And to solve this, you and your fellow animes must head out and battle them in a fun Platinum-style romp. I played the demo that's available on consoles and had a blast with the short bit of gameplay they provided, where you use a combination of party buffs, hack and slash gameplay, and the simple act of chucking bits of scenery around with psychic powers to take down an increasingly weird set of enemies. There's also a lot of weird stuff about brain links, and more than likely some existential crises around the Others, as you'd expect from any good post-apocalyptic anime, so it looks like a good time. Meanwhile, this week, Game of the Week is Sky, Children of the Light, the latest game from that game company best known for beloved cult classic Journey. Previously released on mobile and now getting its first release on a console, this game has the exact kind of gorgeous art style you'd expect from the developers of Journey, with just a hint of Ghibli-esque magic too. You play as a small flying child bringing light back to the world by collecting spirits and candles. There are also social mechanics in the game, built specifically to encourage friendship between players as a natural extension of what Journey was trying to achieve. I've played a little bit of it as it is a free-to-play title, and it just seems really nice and lovely. And for that, if you've got a Switch, it might be worth checking out. And now, back to the main show.
Alright, we've got to go fast.
Oh, I've given myself cramp in my leg now.
So, if you didn't know, what was it, last week or two ago, it was Sonic's 30th birthday. 30 years of that little blue hedgehog running around with his
June
twin.
23rd, 1991.
Mm-hmm. So we thought we'd have a look at some of the Sonic games in the past and look at Sonic's life over the last 30 years and basically go through and think some of the better games and some of the worst games. So I'm sure Leigh will be happy to lead this piece as our video game expert because I've not played a Sonic game since Sonic and Knuckles, so I'm going to be absolutely useless for this, anything past that.
Meanwhile.
So Sonic, if you don't know, is Sega's mascot. He's been Sega's mascot since release back in 1991. Was it on the Mega Drive / Genesis first for Genesis for the Americans and Mega Drive for us in Europe? But yeah, he's been Sonic's mascot ever since then. Spin-offs, he's had films, cartoon series, comic book series, very weird comic book series, racing games, which I'd never understood the point of putting Sonic in a car. The Mario and Sonic at the Olympics series, which has done very well. There's been educational games, lots and lots of different spin-offs. So why is he so popular, do you think because he was just that radical alternative to Mario and he still has that 90s energy coming through?
Well, that's kind of like what sort of kickstarted him, really, is because he was designed as a mascot. He was designed to compete with Mario, with Nintendo. He's the exact same color as the Sega logo for a start. That's the first indication that this is Sega's mascot. And considering that their mascot prior to that was some weird monkey child that was in terrible games, it's no wonder that they felt the need to change it. But yeah, like you said, it's that sort of 90s attitude. They really sort of tapped into that kind of early 90s. Everything's radical. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon had just come out sort of around that time, and they were kind of tapping to that energy, which then fed into a whole series of other animals with attitude that existed within games for the next 10 years or so.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't have got Ratchet and Clank or Crash Bandicoot or Jack and Dexter or any of those kind of games without this first, I think.
I mean, Crash Bandicoot, especially when that was in development, they were calling it Sonic's ass game. So.
Oh yeah, and not forgetting Conker and his Bad Fur Day.
but you see it in things you see it in stuff like Bubsy and Gex and Croc and all these other ones that existed around that sort of time, and most of which have been largely forgotten, but because everyone was just throwing them out there just to try and capture some of that attention, but only Sonic's really kind of carried on.
Yeah.
And it kind of also helped that the sort of those Mega Drive games, the first trilogy of games, are still really, really good games. I think the first one's a little bit clunky because it's the only one that doesn't have the spin dash, so it takes Sonic a while for him to get moving at times. And there's definitely some levels where you're kind of going slowly no matter what you want, and it feels weird for a game sold on its speed to have levels like Marble Zone that force you to wait around a lot. But those are some just excellent platformers that kind of blended that kind of exploratory platforming, because you had the multiple routes through each level with speed, and it kind of encouraged replayability, so you could try and find the best route through the level. And it's why that Sega keep bringing them back and selling them in myriad different ways.
Yeah, I was going to say, because the latest release of the original Sonic 16-bit game was back in 2013, where I think it was on 3DS and Android phones.
They actually would have released a Mega Drive collection in the last couple of years, I think.
Oh,
I think for current consoles, and it would inevitably be on there because it always is. Sega sell a Mega Drive collection every couple of years. Every time a system comes out, here's a new Mega Drive collection. Got to make sure these games are on everything. But that era also had Sonic CD as well, which I don't think was massively played at the time because it was on the Sega CD and not a lot of people owned that. And
the Sega Tower of Power.
Yeah. But yeah, I think sort of that it kind of really captured sort of that era, just in kind of the attitude of it and everything. But like, they are just good games. They actually do hold up, and there's a reason why like Sonic Mania happened in the last few years, and why that still got rave reviews, because it was sort of drawing on all of that. Obviously, we'll talk a bit more about that when we get to it, but yeah, that's kind of like how it all started. And I think like there's definitely a big part of the enduring popularity comes from nostalgia over those early games.
Yeah. I think, and from the first Sonic game through to maybe Sonic and Knuckles, I think it's pretty much viewed as kind of like a peerless collection of these are just solid, great platformers. Keith, you're looking a bit.
No, I was just thinking. I think one of the things for me for the Sonic games, particularly those early ones, is the soundtrack, the music. Because I was just thinking, I can instantly recall pretty much all the music from the first Sonic game, and I was thinking, okay, I played Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo at the same time, and I was kind of thinking, I couldn't hum a tune from that at all. It's like, but if I you could instantly recognize Sonic music straight away. So I think that the whole package that they did with that was kind of
and
iconic.
Yeah, I think a big part of that is down to the fact that those Sonic games actually had like famous musicians doing the soundtrack. I mean, the first two wouldn't be famous to us, but it was like a basis for a Japanese jazz band, I believe it was, did the soundtrack for the first two Sonic games. In fact, it's a band called Dreams Come True. And in fact, if you go and listen to some of their songs, you can actually kind of hear those Sonic tunes in there somewhere, because the bassist clearly like swiped them one way or the other, and just reused them. Like there's a track called "Marry Me," which is very much Green Hill Zone slowed down. But then, like with the third game, there's still debate over it, but it seems very likely that Michael Jackson did at least part of the soundtrack to that game, and that was definitely like peak popularity for Michael Jackson as well, which again it kind of ties in with everything that was going on in the 90s. Obviously he's uncredited for varying reasons, but you can still kind of hear that that his influence in there. Like the mini boss theme clearly has a sample of his whoop noise going on, and a lot of the people who are credited are co-collaborators of his, and it's kind of all makes it very obvious that he was involved, and a lot of those co-collaborators have said, yeah, he was involved, but but even Sonic CD also has like that really good soundtrack as well. Like it's got two separate soundtracks, one for the US and then one for Japan and Europe, and the Japan and Europe one is the better one. But the US one has the best theme from the intro. So they tried to. Sonic music's just like one of those things that sort of keeps it memorable as well. It's one of the best things about the franchise, even over the years.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, to compare back to Mario, because it's always going to come up. Do you think Sonic didn't cope with the transition to 3D as well? Because it's such a thing based on speed, and back in those early 3D days, I think Sonic never really appealed to me, because it was kind of like, well, how is this very fast-paced 2D platformer going to work in a 3D environment?
Well, I think with that we can kind of move on to like these games, the Sonic Adventure games. Because that was like the transition. I think it took them a while to actually get a 3D Sonic game, because the Saturn didn't have an actual Sonic game.
Yeah, I think Dreamcast was the first one, wasn't it?
Yeah, Sonic Adventure was like a launch game for the Dreamcast, but they were planning on a 3D platformer for the Saturn, but it just never got off the ground. And I think that kind of does speak to the difficulty that Sonic's had in transitioning, is that trying to, the years of them trying to make something of Sonic in 3D, and skipping a whole console generation as a result kind of shows the struggles with it. And the adventure games are kind of beloved, but like they are very, very much 3D experiments, they don't really hold up that well. There are moments where Sonic will just clip to the scenery and like the physics engine will just go wonky at times, and it like just trying to marry that speed with the 3D platforming was not a smoother transition as Mario had, where Super Mario 64 was like a hugely influential game that everyone else was trying to emulate for the best half of a decade afterwards.
I mean, when you go back to play Super Mario 64 now, because I bought the Mario Legacy Collection I did for the Switch, it's not a great control system at all. If you actually go back and think about it, it's just not very clunky and very much reminiscent of those early 3D controller schemes which we talked about in the past.
But at the time, it was a revelation. It was a huge step forward, and it was great for the time. But yeah, it doesn't hold up. But you can see, like in some of the other Mario platformers, how they improved on that over the years. And the kind of basic formula of Mario 64 is still there, whereas Sonic, they've had to keep reinventing the wheel constantly with that.
Yeah, and I think Sega not creating a console post the Dreamcast probably has had a big impact on how underperforming Sonic games have been since then.
I think
it's not really got a home anymore.
Yeah, I think they're still kind of popular, but not necessarily like the cultural phenomenon that they were in the early 90s. Like kind of the first game that came out post Dreamcast was Sonic Heroes, and that was again them a lot of signs of them sort of experimenting with stuff, because you had the 4 teams of characters, and they all kind of largely controlled the same, so you were kind of playing through the game 4 times with like different sets of characters, and one of the teams had Big the Cat as an example of like just how little they needed all these characters. But it's like a lot of Sonic Heroes does not hold up either, because there are definitely there's points in that where like the controls bug out, or at least they do in the PS2 version, which I played.
Sonic Heroes made me quit Sonic for quite a while, because I requested it for my birthday. That was like one of my big birthday presents, and on PS2. And there was, with Sonic's team, firstly, all of them were quite obnoxious anyway as characters, but I think even though they had developed that, like in Sonic Heroes, they were particularly obnoxious. But then there was one of the later levels for Sonic's team. The controls were just so bad. I think it was you were on rails going through a mine or something, and you had to switch and jump at certain times, but it was so sluggish and unresponsive that I actually just threw my controller and raged hard. As like, I don't know how old I was, but I just gave up 3D Sonic for quite some time after that.
The point that I stopped in that game was like a jungle level, and every time that I would jump, Sonic would automatically do a homing attack, usually off into an abyss, and I was like, screw this.
Yeah, and then it was Shadow, I think, after that, when they tried to make a more mature Sonic game. Which...
Yeah, let's do, like, or as we like to call it, Out the Edge, if you cut the title down.
I don't think that worked in any way.
Let's give Shadow the Hedgehog a gun.
Yes. And then we followed that up pretty quickly with the Sonic the Hedgehog 2006 version.
Yes, I have it. It's bad. It's real bad.
Yeah, as I say, I think everything just went wrong at that period of Sonic.
Yeah, like the Sonic 06 is notorious just because it was rushed out for Christmas. Originally, I think it was originally like the 360 title. I think it was supposed to be a launch title for the 360. Missed the launch of the PS3 and got delayed slightly. But even despite it having to be delayed, it still came out unfinished when it eventually released to the PS3.
I remember at the time it was marketed as like its 15th anniversary. This is like a big bang relaunch of Sonic. It's going to be amazing, and fell flat.
Yeah, they tried to do a lot with it, but there's so many things that you just kind of question what they were trying to do. Like there's whole like sections where you just wander around a town, like just walking, talking to very generic looking people who do not fit aesthetically next to the Sonic characters. And every time you talk to them, there'd be a loading screen, which would then take you into like them explaining the quest that they've got for you, and then you'd get another loading screen, and then you'd get the actual mission, and then when that's finished, when that would finish, it would have another loading screen, and each loading screen just took minutes. It took forever just to get through them. Just there's so many things as well with like the physics are broken, the story is terrible to the point where there's a romantic storyline where Sonic and a human princess who looks like she belongs in a Final Fantasy game, are like falling in love with each other.
Yeah.
And it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, we refer back to the Tekken thing we were talking about at the intro. It's kind of like the ridiculous storyline, but this was like not done for the ridiculousness. It was done like on purpose.
With Tekken, it's very much like they're leaning into the goofiness of the whole thing the whole time. It's meant to be silly, whereas Sonic 06 was being very serious. And you know, like, first of all, these are cartoon animals, and you're doing these very edgy, dark stories with them that just don't fit like what is basically like a hedgehog that runs fast and is cool and radical. But it's still a good soundtrack though, which surprises me.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I think one of those big issues with Sonic in general is in the 3D realm when they gave him that kind of personality. I know in like the animated series and that kind of thing, he was a rebel and he was a symbol of being a rebel, but in the sort of previous side-scrolling 8-bit kind of days, obviously you didn't get that in terms of he wasn't always trying to quip and that kind of thing. And I think for me, it just got incredibly grating incredibly quickly, even when I was really young playing these games. Because it's things like, if I wanted that kind of edginess, I would have watched Sonic Underground, you know, or the original Sonic cartoon, that kind of thing. But having frustrating gameplay that didn't really work, and then having Sonic and his friends be incredibly obnoxious, you just don't want it, you know.
I mean, do you think that was a bit of a feedback loop between the cartoon version of Sonic and the game version of Sonic? Because you said all this backstory in the first however many games it was back in the day, all the 16-bit side-scrollers, all of that was in the manual. You didn't really get much of that on screen. You just had Sonic running for the level, hitting Dr. Eggman, as it was back in the day, as Robotnik is now. But none of that was really in the game. And then it's kind of when they did that transition to 3D, they brought all that comic, edgy wackiness in.
And the thing as well is that like the games even got the Sonic X cast. Like the entire cast of Sonic X got brought in to voice the games as well. So there was definitely a point where they were trying to bring it all together. Sonic X was like the really, really edgy anime they did. But yeah, it's sort of it was not doing very well at that point, let's be honest. Which kind of led on to like Sonic Unleashed.
Which the most annoying thing of Sonic Unleashed to this day is they called him a werehog, which is man-hog. So it's man-hedgehog. It doesn't work. It should have been a hedge-wolf.
But even with that, it's like the thing about Sonic Unleashed is the day stages were actually like the first time that Sonic was really good in 3D. Like they added in the boost mechanic and stuff, and so there's a lot of stuff that's kind of on rails, but like they kind of built it around that, so you know, and it kind of went back to that idea of like learning the layout of the level so you can find multiple routes and try and get through it faster and all that sort of thing, and that really worked for it. But then they kind of ruined it by having the werehog, which every single werehog, so there were just as many werehog levels as there were daytime Sonic levels. The problem is that each werehog level was like 10 times the length of the day stages because you're moving so slowly, and it was basically like God of War but terrible was how it played. And there were platforming sections which were made worse by the fact that Sonic didn't have a shadow. So you couldn't see if you were going to land on a platform. It's one of the central things that's like part of platformer design, and they didn't have it in there. And, you know, it's just... It was a bit of a slog to get through that one just because of those levels. If they hadn't been so long, it might have been a little bit more bearable. But...
Yeah, could have done with like a short blast Sonic Werehog level, and then back to the old fun stuff.
Yeah,
more of a palate cleanser rather than the main meat of the game.
Yeah, I don't think they intended it for it to be the main meat of the game, but just because it was so much slower, it ended up being that way.
And then we moved on to sorry, Keith.
I was going to say, I think part of the whole thing about Sonic is they nailed it so well at the beginning. The whole iconography of him, the look, the sound, cemented itself in the public consciousness to such an extent that it hasn't mattered. The fact that we're talking about him 30 years later, it hasn't really mattered that, like, probably a lot of people haven't played a Sonic game in a long time. He's just cemented himself into the public consciousness so much. I think the last physical Sonic games I actually played were on the Wii, which was the Sonic and the Secret Rings and Sonic Unleashed. I don't think I've played another Sonic. I may have dabbled with Sonic at the Olympic Games with Mario for my sins. But again, I think
they're solid games, though. But I think that's more than Nintendo part of it.
The difference between Nintendo and Sega is that most of Nintendo's flagship characters don't really say anything. There's not really a backstory to them. You know, Link doesn't really say a lot. Mario doesn't really say a lot. Luigi's a bit more talkative. Samus doesn't say much. But the whole kind of like creating this talky backstory for Sonic, I don't know whether, and then not having a console to really push him. That it's not it would have been Mario sells a Nintendo machine, but now Sega aren't pushing their own devices. So I don't know whether that's he's kind of waxed a little bit in recent years because he hasn't had that kind of impetus to be the mascot that he once was.
Yeah. But I think from that's kind of the essence of it. As I said, like a big part of why it's still there is that nostalgia for those first games. But I do think that like one of the things that Unleashed did right, like I said, was kind of it almost went back to what made those games good by having the idea of there are multiple routes through the level. You hit certain things in a certain way, go at a certain speed, you can go higher up and you can get a faster route. There was a lot more of that they built into the game. But obviously the Werehog then slowed it down, which is probably why they kind of took that part away but kept that sort of style of gameplay for the following games. Because you had, like, these two were the next ones. So you had Sonic Colors.
Sonic Colors is renowned as quite well. I mean, there is Sonic and the Black Knight, but that kind of gets forgotten about on purpose, I think.
The storybook games, Secret Rings and Black Knight, are not very good. You know, the first one's, like... They're both very on rails, and the first one is just an endless runner. Like, Sonic does not stop running at all. And Black Knight, they gave him a sword, and it doesn't work.
yeah, just doesn't work. But Colors was quite well received, if I recall correctly. It was it felt like this is Sonic back to its roots.
Yeah, it took, like, all the stuff that Unleashed did right and made that the game. Like, there's still, like, some gimmicky stuff with, like, the Wisp characters that you can find, like the alien things, but they just give Sonic different abilities, and some of those abilities actually do contribute to the gameplay a lot more. So, like, there's one where he can turn into a drill, so you can drill through the ground, but you're still moving quickly, and you're still trying to, navigate through, like, an explorable level, and it's a lot more enjoyable than let's slow things down and play terrible God of War for 10 minutes. And then Generations kind of really went back to where the series started by just recreating levels from the entire history of the franchise. So it made Crisis City from Sonic 06 actually playable.
I mean, I think that was probably, again, a bit of a misstep for them, though, because, as I said, it highlighted the best of Sonic, and it gave some of the better games and reinterpretations of that, but they all still included the not so great elements of Sonic at the same time. So it's kind of like it's like a nice sandwich with a couple of dead flies just stuck in there, and like trying to navigate around.
And you'd think that once they'd kind of nailed that formula, they got, this works now, let's carry on with this, and then they decided to do this for the Wii U. And the problem with this is they were trying to do Mario Galaxy with it.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is that doesn't work.
No.
For a start, they gave Sonic a run button, so he would move very slowly normally. You had to hold down a run button in order to get him to move at what you'd expect Sonic to move at. And I'm just like, why? No. But they tried to keep some of that kind of boost style gameplay in there, but it didn't really work with like the planet style Mario Galaxy sort of thing that they were going for.
Yeah, it's been a thing as well with Sonic games, is they've always seemed to like ape Mario a few years later rather than going off and doing their own thing.
Yeah.
It's a case of, we'll see what Mario's up to and then make a kind of shoddy copy of it and just hope it sells for the parents buying stuff for their kids.
Yeah.
It's quite an interesting formula though, because if you look at a lot of different sort of iconic game characters and franchises, like one of the reasons why it works with Mario is because Mario himself is quite a blank canvas and the gameplay is quite standard. So therefore you can do Mario Racing, you can do Super Smash Bros, and it works because the way they've kind of done it is there is no one particular format that is distinctly Mario, essentially. But I think the problem with Sonic is from the very start, kind of what Keith said, they carved their niche, which was the speed. But then, like all the Sonic racing games, you're a bit like, that's fine. However, he runs at the speed of light, so why is he driving? And the Sonic beat 'em ups and that kind of thing. Again, you're there being like, right, but fundamentally that's not him. And I think you can say a lot of things. The same goes for like Crash Bandicoot, which obviously copied Sonic in essence. But even going to like Tomb Raider, effectively, Tomb Raider, the reboots, regardless of what you think about them, they did the thing of they went to, okay, we're going to start copying Uncharted and we're going to do a little bit of The Last of Us and this kind of stuff, where you're there being like, but they copied you first, if you know what I mean. It's kind of you've got your characters and you've got your sort of brand and your style, and now you're trying to paste it over something else when actually that doesn't necessarily work.
And I think off the back of that with Mario is that Mario, I think Shigeru Miyamoto has said in the past that like there is no real canon to any of the Mario games, that like they're kind of just actors essentially. Like that's kind of the kind of characters they're supposed to be, because you even see it in Super Mario Brothers 3 where like a curtain raises at the beginning, and like there's that whole idea that these are just characters who are playing a part, which means that you can put them in go-karts, you can have them play tennis, and it's just like it's another role, it's another thing that they just fit into as necessary.
If you think about it, Mario is always Mr. Default or Mr. Average. He is always the most average racer or the most average character. So you had that in Mario 2 where Mario was the average one, Luigi could jump higher, Daisy could float. Everybody had different powers, but Mario has always been Mr. Central, Mr. Average. Same with Mario Kart. If you pick Mario, he's not going to be the fastest, he's not going to be the heaviest car, but it's going to be the stock experience. And that's how Nintendo always interpreted Mario. He is Mr. Default.
I did just check as well, and unfortunately this doesn't apply to Smash Brothers because he's considered S tier.
But even like Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, he's still Mr. Average. He's average stats across the board.
Yeah.
Whereas Sonic, we know the whole thing about Sonic, and it's the phrase "got to go fast" because that's his entire character. He's somebody who can run very fast. He can run at the speed of sound or the speed of light or whatever the speed.
Yeah, the idea of anyone beating Sonic in a foot race in the Olympics is absurd.
Yeah, for example, yeah. And that kind of thing, that hampers the character because there's nothing you can do around it because it's so intrinsic to having Sonic as a character, you can't take his speed away from him, because then it just makes it betrays the character that they've created around him.
I think Sega have attempted to justify it in the past by saying like, oh, he's just having a good time with his friends, and so like he's slowing down deliberately so that it's a fair competition. And I'm just like, that's kind of ridiculous. Like,
but it'd still run at the very end and win, because that's kind of the person who Sonic is. He'd wait for the last 3 meters, then just then go over the line and back. Yeah. I mean, we've got the Sonic Forces. Yeah. Which, again, not a great highlight in the franchise.
Yeah, it's kind of like they'd gone back to that formula, but this time made the levels really short and really uninteresting, and decided to make original character do not steal a canon thing within the universe.
Yeah. But we've got Rangers coming up. Sorry.
I was going to say, like, with Sonic Forces, they kind of could have done quite well, because they were there being like, you can have your own sort of Mary Sue within the Sonic universe, but then you did it, and then about 5 minutes later they're like, Sonic's back, there we go, it's fine. Sonic, everyone is back.
And also there's the crime of when I played it on PlayStation Plus, there was no ferret option, so I'm just like, well, what's the point?
But I mean, we've got Sonic Rangers coming up next year. I believe it's on for release if things carry on working out that way in the world. Yeah. I mean, not really said that much. I don't think we've seen that much of Sonic Rangers except for a trailer.
We've seen like the teaser trailer, which was basically just, I think you saw Sonic running through a forest and then kind of glitching through the world. Yeah. So clearly it's going to be a Sonic 06 remake. But I'm not actually sure what it's going to be yet.
I wonder whether, going forwards, we even need any more Sonic games, because in a sense, Sonic has slipped into the public consciousness, into pop culture, in a way that, does he really need games anymore? In a way that everybody knows Mickey Mouse, and everybody buys Mickey Mouse products, and everybody is hooked in, knows about Mickey Mouse, is all good, but can anybody remember the last time they actually watched a Mickey Mouse cartoon? And I kind of wonder if Sonic, again, is at a point where he doesn't really need the games anymore, because he just lives in people's popular culture, and he's referred to and talked about. When people talk about speed, it's referenced.
I think the difference is, need a game? Keith, that Walt Disney have enough to survive on with a plethora of other franchises. But for Sega, and as I said, for a console as Sega, they've not really got that many franchises left which they own. So I think pumping out a Sonic game every couple of years is a way for them to just get some money in the piggy bank. And now we've got the Sonic movie. Is this a case of, he's back in the public conscious, we've had the movie, we've got a sequel coming out, it's time to get some games out and try and make some bank off that at the same time? Because at the end of the day, it's still got to make profit.
Yeah, because if you look at Sega's other IPs, they don't have anything that's quite on the same scale. Like, Total War is popular, but that's not Sonic level, is it?
But then they've got to make a good Sonic game.
Yeah.
That captures the zeitgeist of what he was doing in the...
I was really shocked 90s. That they didn't do a Sonic the movie tie-in game, because obviously that is like the easiest way for them to make it.
It's going to be terrible, though, that's the thing.
It doesn't matter, though, because people will buy it, and the whole point of the Sonic the Hedgehog movie was it's to an audience that we don't exist in anymore. It's designed for kids, and it's for 10 to 12, that kind of pre-teen, early teen kind of audience, and that's where Sonic lives now.
Although it is funny that you say that, because obviously with our discussion about the cinema, that was the last movie I saw at the cinema before the pandemic.
Yeah.
But you know what? I actually quite enjoyed the Sonic movie for what it was. And also, I think in terms of his personality, they actually did it quite well in the movie.
I've definitely seen worse video game movies. So I don't think it was brilliant, but it wasn't bad.
I think they released the bad CGI on purpose to get everybody like hating it, and then having that free hype. And it's like, no, we fixed Sonic. Come and watch the movie now. From a cynical point of view, it's like, did they release the awful version just to like draw up some hype for the film again?
Although the weirdest thing about the Sonic movie is that the most 90s thing about it is Jim Carrey. Because he is just being 90s Jim Carrey.
Yeah. But do you think having Sonic back in the public eye with a successful movie kind of does help Team Sonic at Sega a little bit? Because they can actually... Do you think Sega might actually give them some money and some time this time around?
It's possible because, like, obviously they're also doing, I think it's an Amazon series. So I think, they're trying to find multiple avenues at which they can present Sonic to the world, and doesn't necessarily need to be a game every year, because I think that was happening at one point. There was like a new game every few months pretty much, and it's like no wonder they were all bad, because they were rushing them all out.
Yeah.
So I think, especially because like with Rangers coming out, that's going to be the first game from Sonic Team since 2017. And that's, I think, a good amount of time for them to kind of properly sit down and think, how are we going to do this properly? And I think because they knew that they were doing the movie in the interim, they could kind of allow them that time, I think. So.
Yeah. I mean, do you think it's... I know you're pretty invested in the franchise, so will you be picking up Rangers?
Probably. We'll see how it turns out, because even when it's like bad, it's kind of entertainingly bad. So,
Matt, Keith, would you be willing to reinvest back into the Sonic franchise?
To be honest, yeah. I mean, I picked up Sonic Mania when it was free on the PlayStation Store and played it, and I do really enjoy it. Obviously, it is very much going back to kind of Sonic roots, but I am more than happy to return to the Sonic universe. I think the problem I have, and it's not just with the Sonic team or Sega, it's like I said before, my little mini rant, it's more the case of publishers and game devs trying to paste like other genres onto what they've got. I think there is still space to make decent Sonic games in 3D sphere as well.
Yeah.
It's just, as sort of Leigh said, they just kind of need to give it more time and to actually go, okay, well, this worked, so let's do more of this, Yeah.
I mean, we didn't really talk much about it, but we have had Sonic 4 in both its episodes, and that was a real go back to basics, just fresh 2D platformer with fresh graphics.
It wasn't good though, because it was very sluggish. But I think this is kind of where Sega did the right thing with Sonic Mania by kind of shipping it out to fans and being like, you kind of know what you love about the franchise, make something. And it's something that Sega have been showing a lot of success with, of just like shipping their IPs out to other developers. They did it with Streets of Rage as well, and that was excellent as well. And it's like, I think Sega can do more of that in future, so that it isn't just on Team Sonic as well, and have more kind of fan-driven projects, that become passion projects for smaller teams that kind of understand, that kind of know why they like Sonic, and therefore would put a lot of those ideas into the game. I think we could probably see some more success stories like Mania if they did more of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think, you make a good game that builds on what made the original games so such a standout. Just make a good game, and that's what I want. And and double down on the whole idea of what that Sonic is about: speed. I don't need an RPG. I don't need a sort of random backstory to give me the tragic upbringing of some random character that I don't care about.
You've reminded me that BioWare made a Sonic RPG.
I mean, from the screenshots of Sonic Rangers, I mean, it could be possibly open world. So that is kind of a slight worry in the back of my mind. But I still think there's, as Keith said, I think there's enough there with the original brace of Sonic games. So if we go with 1, 2, CD, Knuckles, that kind of original brace of game, I don't think they're ever going to get old, because they just work so beautifully, and the colours back then, and that defined artwork style, I still think works to this day, and it's very much something that I don't mind. But I think, as you've said, if they got rid of all the backstory, I think there'd be a big fan backlash. But at the same time, I think it could possibly due to like get rid of all that and just like start afresh with Sonic rather than pandering to decades worth of crazy backstory which doesn't really need to be involved in the game.
Yeah, make the actual gaming experience fun and exciting. You know, I'm not bothered about the cutscenes in between. It's the bit where I'm in control of Sonic. That's what I'm interested in.
Yep.
Or split it into two franchises and keep the fan service version somewhere else that they can carry on with. Yeah, but he's survived. He's still very popular, and it's been 30 years, so probably a good happy birthday to Sonic. Thank you for joining us on the Geeky Brummie podcast this issue. Leigh, where can we find you online?
You can find me on YouTube at Bob the Pet Ferret, where I do various different gaming videos. And if you want to see my very popular video on why Sonic is bad, I didn't mean to say Sonic, but that works. Anyway, yes, Bob the Pet Ferret. It's supported on Patreon at Bob the Pet Ferret. Updates on Twitter at Bob the Pet Ferret, and I tweet out normally at the Cheap Ferret as well. And you can find me on geekybrummie.com every Friday doing a gaming roundup of the latest news and releases.
Awesome. Matt, where can we find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Mr. Matt Level. You can find me on Instagram at matchstick_Matt. You can also find me on the Geeky Brummie Twitter handle on Mondays, where I'll be tweeting various things, depending on how I'm feeling. And you'll find my esports update on the Geeky Brummie website, where I continue my ongoing campaign to make UK esports a legitimate thing.
Awesome. Keith, where can we find you?
My personal Twitter feed is hardluck_hotel. You remove the underscore on Instagram to get my arty black and white pictures of landmarks. I am also on YouTube, but most of my videos aren't as entertaining as Leigh. They're strange wedding fairs or mariachi bands. But generally, the best way to find me is every Wednesday.
Put more mariachi bands.
Every Wednesday, retweeting myself on the Geeky Brummie Twitter feed, telling you all about such fabulous comics like Kane and Abel from Image. So every Wednesday, I make some recommendations of generally comics I actually buy or read digitally if they're on the radar. But yeah, you can find that most Wednesdays on Geeky Brummie.
Thank you. And you can find me at Ryan Parrish on Twitter when I remember the login details. It doesn't happen very often. Or for the food stuff, when that actually restarts, it'll be Brummie Gourmand. Or you can find me on Tuesdays now doing the tech roundup on the geekybrummie.com website. So I take some of the hottest tech stories for the previous week and round them up in a kind of, you might have missed this important news story. So like over the last couple of weeks, I've looked at Windows 11, AMD's new shiny way to get more resolution out of your aging graphics card, Mobile World Congress, and an Xbox fridge. Yeah, it kind of bounces around a bit in the tech world. And you can find me on Twitter on geekybrummie.com, Geeky Brummie on Tuesdays as well, where I occasionally write some stuff. You never know. But God, I always hate this bit. Like, subscribe, share, comment, things at the bottom. Please click them. They do come in handy and they do help with engagement and spreading the word to your fellow geeks. But thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. But for now, goodbye, everybody.
Go
Bye.
Go bye.
Bye.